This little video clip is going to be about mosquitoes and the West Nile virus. Now, a recent CNN headline said, U.S. poised for epidemic West Nile year. And this sort of reminded me of the Y2K thing that was so overblown, and the 2003-2004 winter that was supposed to be so bad for flu. So let's get a little perspective. And when you're talking about mosquitoes in West Nile, ponds like these are important, but there's more to it than that. What I'll do is take a look at a typical home situation and see where the mosquitoes come from, show their breeding cycle, what they look like, and so on. So I've set a normal fish bowl out, and I'll let it fill up with rainwater and let nature take its course. I don't have any mosquito seeds, but we'll have to count on the mosquitoes for that. And I can assure you there's no shortage of mosquitoes back here. The driving mechanism for West Nile virus is, of course, the mosquito. And what you're looking at here is a little fish bowl with about a gallon of water in it. And I'll give you a few facts while you're watching the larvae, the mosquito larvae, swim around in there. The female mosquito will lay her eggs in water that is not flowing because it just takes too much energy. They just get flushed out of flowing water. And as you can see, they wiggle around once the eggs hatch into larvae. The larvae will feed on microorganisms. In this case, most of it's in the bottom of the fish bowl, and then come to the surface and breathe through a little snorkel device. And that's, you can just see them coming up and down there. But let me give you a few facts. In 2003, in the United States, there were over 9,800 cases of West Nile virus. The death toll in 2003 was about 262. In over a quarter of the cases were in Colorado alone for some reason. But the virus was first identified in 1937 in the West Nile region of Uganda, which is why it's called the West Nile virus. And it came to the United States about 5 years ago. There is currently no vaccine for the West Nile virus. But most people who are infected never show any signs of the illness, and about 20% may experience flu-like symptoms. In a small number of cases, the virus can be fatal. The risk of a person contracting the virus is pretty low. Only 1% of the mosquitoes carry it in the areas where the virus is established. And less than 1% of people bitten by those infected mosquitoes ever develop symptoms that could lead to death. So, with the death toll about 262 in 2003, over 36,000 Americans died from flu last year. So we have to keep this in perspective. And in the mid-Atlantic area, North Carolina had 24 cases and 2 deaths. Maryland had 73 cases and 8 deaths. Tennessee had 26 cases and 1 death, as Virginia had 26 cases and 1 death. Now, these mosquitoes will live, once they come out of the larval stage, the lifespan is weeks to several months. depending on if they run into a spider web or birds get them or somebody smacks them. And they can travel up to several miles from where they hatch, and that depends on the wind and a couple other things. But in every sitting body of water, small or large, whether it's a gutter or a drainage pipe or a small pond or a tire, basketball stand, it can be anything, wheelbarrows. Throughout the summer, these bodies of water will get what you see in them, larvae, and so you don't have to be living in a swamp. I don't know too many people living in a swamp anyway. And you may take care of your property, but somebody else close to you may be breeding mosquitoes. And we'll show you some of the places, and they'll be obvious when I show them to you. This is what I meant by a basketball stand. Now, it doesn't take much water to breed mosquitoes. In fact, some mosquito eggs will even survive drying out and can survive a dry spell to hatch after the next rainstorm. And it's places like these that might actually breed more mosquitoes than ponds deep in a wooded area, because these places don't have the frogs and the small fish that ponds do, which help keep the mosquitoes under control. This is an example of standing water that you normally wouldn't think of. This roof is about a 4 or 5 and 12. The owner put screen over the gutter, and it was a good job. It was well done. But you can see, obviously, stuff is washing over the gutter. And what happens is, I pulled that last section out, and I just pulled a hunk of junk, actually garden dirt, out of this gutter. This downspout was totally blocked up. After rain, the whole length of the gutter would be loaded, and you can just see the water sitting up here. And what happens is mosquitoes can get in not through the screen here, but through the end. And you can have sitting water, and that's this apparently good installation would actually be a source of breeding for mosquitoes. Now the same thing is happening on this section of gutter and downspout. You can see it just washes right over the top. This downspout serves as a porch. And once again, the gutter screen is a good job, but here's the downspout. There's the mess. Totally blocked up for some time. It takes a while for leaves and twigs to degrade like that. And it's going to take some time for this ground out in front of the house to dry out. And it'll probably take another couple trips up here just to make sure that that stays open, because this stuff will wash and once again block that downspout up. And of course, one of the hazards with working with sharp edges and sheet metal is the occasional wound. But even though I'm in excruciating pain, construction guys are tough, so I'll keep on going. And I got BA negative blood, so that's compatible with any man or beast. A familiar scene, and I think you know what we're going to find up there before I even go up there. And this place is loaded with mosquitoes. I've been smacking them all afternoon. Excuse me. I have been gently brushing them away from my face all afternoon. So let's see what we have up there. Yep. No surprise. This does not have obviously does not have a screen over top of it, but the same situation as before. And at least this time I won't be wounding myself. But the trick is to get this out without minimal droppage. That's all it takes. Of course, doing this one-handed is kind of tricky sometimes, but construction guys get used to doing things one-handed. And with the proper slant on this gutter, it's close. That'll drain out. I'll just move the ladder down and keep on cleaning out. And the next section. And I'm going to stop this filming so I can do this two-handed now. But you can hear it, I think. This is your typical 4-inch foundation drain pipe, and often it's used underground to take the gutter and downspout rainwater away from the house. And it typically comes in these 50 or 100 foot rolls. And also typically the newest guy on the job site is usually the one who has the job of unrolling this and laying it around the house or laying it in the ditch. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the problems start. And they start because when you unroll this pipe, it wants to retain that curl. And they just unroll it. They just roll it like a tire down the ditch or around the house. And I'll show you what happens when it finally makes its appearance above ground. You can see the moisture. And I'm not sticking my hand up in that pipe. But in a shady area, of course, that water will stay in there for weeks. And it's a prime mosquito breeding place. And this short section of corrugated pipe actually has a fall on it. It's sloped to the very end. It does not have that characteristic curl. So even when they're flat or have a good fall, it still collects water in the very end. And here's some other common places around the house. Well, I see my son has been cutting the grass again. He's such a good boy. 18 years old, and he's just about got this grass cutting thing mastered. Another year or two and he'll have it down cold. But you have a barbecue stand, and you have a planter with a base, and of course in some states you have discarded washing machines or dryers or something like that. But these are under a porch or under a tree, and you can imagine the difficulty that a public health agency would have in taking strong direct action against mosquitoes. For example, if they wanted to spray from a truck or a plane, because the insecticide would never touch these protected areas, just like the piping, the underground piping that I showed you. You have to be careful in how you demand that the public health agencies handle this situation. That's one reason I gave the death statistics of West Nile virus. If people start getting worked up, hyperventilating, and running into walls in a near panic, the public health agency will be forced to treat the panic rather than the public health situation, and waste a lot of the public money needlessly. So in this case, public education is probably more effective than drastic direct action. So you get rid of the standing water around your house, wear long sleeves and long pants, and of course spend a fortune on mosquito repellent. We're just about at the end of this story, so let's see how close the larvae and the pupae are to taking flight. Now if I can get this focus right, you're going to see the larva and the pupa stage together, and you might see one of those guys getting ready to take flight. But watch what happens when I come up close to the little black dots of the pupa stage. And when they quit going up and down, long skinny larvae, they spend most of the time on the surface. And watch what happens. That's their defense mechanism against frogs and little fish. Guess it helps some of them, but not all of them. And you can see a few of the larvae in there as well. But there's one little fella just about getting ready to take flight. And if you look right about in the center, you might, if a breeze goes by, you'll see one of his legs or whatever he has moving around a little bit. He's just about emerged from the pupa stage, and under normal conditions he would take flight in a very short time, but this mosquito farm is about to be shut down. Wasn't meant to bred mosquitoes, just to educate